2014 Washougal City Council meeting. Would you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Boger.
Here.
Councilmember Plinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee.
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Councilmember Freeman is away this evening and is ill.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that Councilmember Freeman be excused.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. Under amendments to the agenda, I have one amendment that I know of, and that would be to add an item C under new business, a resolution to allow beer and wine in the Civic Center. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Public comments. Anyone from the public that would like to address council?
Yeah, I got just, well, two things, but I'll only talk about one. Jeff Guard, 4105 Gifford Place, Washougal. This is concerning the Evergreen Drive as you pass 39th and heading towards Guard Middle School. A few years ago, quite a few years ago actually, they put in some duplexes on the north side of the road there. The Thompson family was involved with that. At the time they did that, they put sidewalks in, as was per our code, but they're interrupted sidewalks, as everybody knows. And it was intended at that time that those sidewalks would be there, and then there was a bike lane for the kids to get back and forth to Guard. And what's happened over the years is that people have started parking in that bike lane. And it was understood with the owners and the tenants at the time that that would not happen. At one time, there used to be signs there saying no parking on the north side, and that there was some little bike lane decals on the pavement as well. That's all gone now. Now you have parking there, and it's blocking that. And I know you're working on a safe passage grants for the schools, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention and see if you can, maybe Trevor can kind of research to see what Scott did back in the days when that was going on, and see what we can do to resolve that. So.
Yeah, I know that's all wrapped up into a bigger project. I think we purposely, Trevor, didn't we purposely take the bike lane out? No, Mike. I'm remembering a gentleman that was riding the wrong way in the bike lane and the width of the bike lane and everything else, and ended up going over a car and didn't stop for a...
Rose said I have to have the mic, so. Is it working?
There's one there.
They want to take it over for you. Yeah, so we removed those decals. We had some issues with people utilizing that and parking there as well in the bike lane. So we do have infill sidewalks. There's been duplexes and other houses that have been built on the north side. Obviously, south side is BNSF right away. So we can take a look at that again and see if the no parking signs have been compromised. I've seen that there's cars that have parked on the south side up against BNSF right away. Semi-trucks and delivery vans as far as people moving in and out as far as occupancy. So we can take a look at that and see what we have out there currently as far as signage and any sight distance issues.
And was I correct? The big picture is you're still looking at safe pathways?
All the way out to
Kids
Guard.
get back forth work, because again, sidewalks are not bikes, lanes are not supposed to be, but anyway, thank you. I'll get out of your head.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to comment to council? Okay, moving to the consent agenda. This evening you have 6 items on your consent agenda: your workshop minutes of February 24th, 2014, your council minutes of February 24th, your regular accounts payable claims in the amount of $556,027.41, payroll claims totaling $539,016.78, Agenda Bill 17-14, setting a public hearing for miscellaneous code amendments, Round 2, and Agenda Bill 1814, an authorization for the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Wallace Engineering for design of the new fueling facility at Public Works. Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Dave?
I ask, would you pull item F for discussion, please?
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we approve consent agenda items A through E.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. Going to Agenda Bill 18-14, Professional Services Agreement from Wallace Engineering for design of the new fueling facility at Public Works. Trevor?
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, staff is recommending entering into a professional service contract with Wallace Engineering to assist us in the design of the fueling facility. This is a pass-through grant from the Department of Ecology in regards to MPDS Phase 2 phase-in. Project is identified in our Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, which is our SWIP for short, the acronym. The funds in the amount of $50,000 from DOE have been granted, and 100% of the engineering will be reimbursed. The recommended action is to authorize the mayor to sign the professional service agreement by Wallace Engineering.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the professional service agreement submitted by Wallace Engineering.
Second. Got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the PSA with Wallace Engineering. Dave?
A single question, if I may. Is this new fueling facility entirely contained within our property? It's not impinging on BNSF and anybody else?
Yes, it's within the operations center footprint. We do have BNSF right away to the north, but this current layout, and we'll get into the specifics of the design as far as the containment area and the footprint of the roof, will be within our current holdings.
So that solves our problem of impinging on other people's property.
Right, as far as siting the fueling facility. And the thought process around this site is to be able to have it mobile as far as a skid, to be able to do quick disconnect, to be able to relocate to another site if needed to do so.
Thank you for bringing this to us before it became an issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Any other questions?
I do, and this is probably just for fun, but why are we building this with a vegetated roof?
It's part of the low impact as far as taking care of the stormwater on site and not having to put in larger
I thought
infrastructure to treat
that might
the
have something
stormwater.
to do with it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the professional services agreement submitted by Wallace Engineering. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Takes us to new business, item A, Agenda Bill 1914, a resolution regarding the franchise agreement with Comcast of Washington LLC.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you is a resolution that would approve the franchise agreement with Comcast. As you know, we workshopped this at your last meeting. Some of the highlights are that we would engage in a 10-year agreement with one extension for an additional 5 years. The current 5% franchise fee would be maintained for the life of this agreement. The agreement also maps out the necessary PEG fees to ensure that our audiovisual equipment in this room is working well and can be replaced on an appropriate depreciation schedule so that we can continue to broadcast on Fort Vancouver Television, your council meetings, and potentially other meetings of other groups as time moves forward. This is sort of a different sort of resolution you're used to. Normally, you pass and post resolutions in the usual manner. State law, however, requires that for resolutions granting a franchise, that you not only pass and post the resolution, but that you will also publish the resolution. So the recommended action tonight is, after reading the resolution by title only, that you pass, post, and publish the resolution in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the resolution by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
Before I read that, I wanted to add one more thing, and that this resolution requires 4 votes, 4 positive votes to pass, as opposed to the normal resolution. A resolution granting a non-exclusive franchise to Comcast of Washington 5 LLC to operate a cable communication system in the city of Washougal.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass, post, and publish the resolution in the usual manner.
Second. I've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the resolution in the usual manner. David?
I heard something tonight that I didn't hear when we discussed this last time. What happens to Frontier?
We have a current agreement with Frontier, so we'll just continue to operate under our current agreement. No change.
Okay, but I thought I heard the word exclusive here.
Non-exclusive.
Non-exclusive.
Non-exclusive. Thank you.
We're not going to ace Frontier out.
Had me worried there, Don. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Any other questions? Tim, you good with everything that's in there?
I'll take it, just a few seconds. Yes, Comcast is really great with the agreement that we have developed together. I wanted to express my appreciation for the city staff, Dave, and his staff for being able to pull this together in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it's been really a pleasure to work with your team, and I wanted to state that to you folks.
Appreciate that, thank you. Okay, there are no other questions. I've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the resolution in the usual manner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. That brings us to Jennifer with the Finance 2013 fourth quarter update. I do, before Jennifer gets underway with this, and I know we have not yet given you copies or put it into the Dropbox on there, I asked her to hold off on doing this presentation until we had a chance to not only check all of our year-end numbers, but to double-check them and then triple-check them again as well. As you may remember, in 2013, during the budget sessions, council agreed to some use of reserves. The biggest portions of those, $500,000 for some utility relief for our constituents and $94,000 for the community development fee holiday. We are going to give you information tonight to let you know that our estimate of $594,000 did not prove out accurate to what we would need. When all was said, done, checked, and double-checked, the total needed from the general fund is $6,000. Additionally, we didn't transfer any funds from the EMS 125 fund this year. We didn't need to. So the total net result is nearly $975,000 to the positive. That's wonderful news for the city. It's wonderful news for our budget out of 2013. Our budget going into 2014 was already balanced and ready to go. Really, the two reasons that, and Jennifer will get into some detail, is simply our revenues were higher than we forecast and our expenses were much lower than we forecast, and that's why I've asked all the department heads to be here today. On the expense side, for I believe the third year or the fourth year in a row, the department heads came in and their staffs at 97% of their allocated budgets. And that is not through any simple means of them doing that, because if you add that up, that starts to get into 9 to 12% that they have not spent over the cumulative number of years in there out of a $10 million general fund budget. I want to make sure and recognize them and their staffs, because the staffs, the line staff doing the work, are the ones that are also assisting in doing that. Jennifer gets the credit for being the one to deliver the news to you of what it's done, but truly, all the department heads and their staff are the ones that have made that happen. Just a word of caution. Just a word of caution, while that is tremendous news for finishing out our 2013 financial year, it really doesn't do much for us for the outlying years and the deficits that we have projected out there. As Jennifer will go through, most everything are one-time expense savings that we realized in 2013, but there really aren't any that are ongoing ones that are going to save us money moving out from that. So we'll continue to be as vigilant as we can, and I know the department heads and their staffs will be in regards to expenses and doing what we can on that side, but we've still got that portion to to figure out how we're gonna overcome that. But I think the good news for tonight is that we ended up 13 much, much better than we anticipated. Jennifer?
Okay. Trevor has handouts since it's not in the Dropbox, and Dawn has. All right. Thank you, Trevor. So as the mayor mentioned, we're going over the year-end fourth quarter update for 2013, and the news is very positive. So we'll start with the recap. Sean, or Mayor Gard alluded to this already, but we budgeted, as you'll recall, for a deficit of $594,000 to use for rate relief and some other things. And the actual deficit is approximately $6,000. And again, the difference is due to the higher revenues and lower expenses, and we'll get into more details as we go along. Some of the high-level reasons, the way our funds work, as you'll recall, the general fund and the street fund are separate. However, the general fund supports the street fund, so we usually have to do a transfer. The way that we've accounted for the street fund in the past, we've bounced back and forth a couple different ways with the revenues. So there was a fund balance in the street fund, and it was bigger than we had anticipated at the start of 13. So our budgeted transfer of $585,000 to support the street fund wasn't necessary. So that's part of the reason why 13 is so positive. We also anticipated a revenue transfer from the EMS surplus fund of $385,000 due to the increase in revenues and the decrease in expenses. We didn't need to do that to get to the deficit of $6,000. We did spend the $500,000 for rate relief out of the general fund, and that is reflected in the projected deficit. So it worked out very well. Excuse me. Whoa. We have actually already looked at this for 14, and we have increased our revenue projections for 14, so we shouldn't see as big of a difference between our expected and our actual. If we do, that's great news. It just means that the economy is booming and picking up again, which would be great. The lower expenses were mostly due to the reorganizations that we've done in community development, delays in hiring of staff. I know the fire department was down a couple positions for most of the year, and that's not expected to continue, and we budgeted for full staff in 14. So some of those expenses, or most of those expenses, are due to those issues of not having enough people hired. And as we hire more people, the budget will absorb that because we did budget for full staff. But for instance, the fire department alone was $200,000 short, or not short, excuse me, wrong word, $200,000 under budget for 13. So that was the biggest department difference, which we'll see here in a moment. So as we mentioned, the revenues, we collected 99% of the budgeted revenue that we expected to take in. It just wasn't in the spots we thought it would be in, because that $385,000 was part of that budget, and we didn't have to transfer any of that. We collected 100% of property taxes. We did receive some wildfire reimbursements that I believe were from 12, but we didn't receive them till 13, so it counts as 13 revenue. And overall, the revenue was up 3.7% from the fourth quarter of 2012.
You mentioned full staffing for the coming year.
Mm-hmm.
Will that include our 20th police officer?
It'll be for the positions that are currently approved, and we don't have 20 currently approved. We have
Well, I thought we had 20 on the books.
19.
19, okay. Thank you.
So here's the revenues for the general and street funds. You can see the regular property taxes. We budgeted 4.184 and we collected 4.186. Sales tax was also higher. Our utility taxes were about right on. Leasehold and gambling taxes were higher than budgeted. Pretty much every line item was higher, which brings us down to the Indirect cost recovery is a little bit less because that's based on actual expenses, which were lower. So that's the difference between the $915,000 that we anticipated collecting. The building department under permits was significantly higher than anticipated, so that's another huge difference there, the 140% between budget and actual. And the other revenue sources is where that $385,000 was supposed to be transferred in, and as you can see, we had other revenue sources of $57,000. So the bottom line is we collected almost $6 million in actual revenue over the year. On the expense side, some of the highlights that you'll see, there were a couple departments that were over budget. The Mayor and Administrator Department, when we did the 2013 budget at the end of 2012, it's when we were doing the reorganization, and we weren't sure who was going to fill the administrative assistant position. So we had budgeted a guess as to what that position would cost based on the range. And then after we filled it, it didn't match what we had budgeted for. It's still within the range. We're not over budget for the position. But the 13 budget just wasn't reflected properly, whereas 14 will be corrected, or has been corrected, and so that won't be over budget this year. Finance was also slightly over budget, but we planned it to be that way because we moved IT into the finance world. So the general government line item is actually less because that's where IT was captured before. So as you can see, we budgeted $94,000 for council, and you came under this year compared to the election costs, which caused you to go over in 12. As I mentioned, community development. I was supposed to ask Mitch for his pointer, so I apologize, I didn't. Community development was under by about $100,000 from their budget. Engineering was about $50,000 under budget, just for some of the highlights. The Parks Department is slightly over budget due to a lease payment that we hadn't budgeted for that we needed for one of the fields, so we knew it was going to go over. But since we've budget the general fund as a whole, we didn't need to do a budget amendment for that. And it has been captured in 14 moving forward. So bottom line is we budgeted to spend approximately $11.2 million, and we spent $10.6. And again, those are mostly in the staffing shortages that we had for a lot of 13. The net results, as Mayor Gard alluded to at the beginning, the actual results are about, we were approximately $975,000 better than we anticipated. That was due to the revenues being higher than we expected by $442,000 approximately, of course. And expenses were lower by about $530,000.
Curious, what, 533,000 is a big number. What didn't we do?
Part of that is the $200,000 in the fire department. We were down a couple positions. Overtime came in less. Community development did the reorganization, so that was about $100,000. General government was a little bit lower. The audit costs a little bit less. So just all the little things that were slightly off added up to that number.
Thank you.
So the net result is our reserve balance is going to be higher by approximately $588,000. It's not going to change the outlying revenues and expenses because that's based off the budget and what we anticipate revenues and expenditures to do in the future. But it does, I'll show you in a moment, add those reserves for available uses in the future. Another very positive result is that the EMS Fund 125, instead of only having about $266,000 to support the fire costs, now has about $651,000 that we'll be able to use to pay for fire services in the next few years or so. Or if there's capital needs that we need for the EMS services, we could consider that as well. So this is probably easier to read in your handout or on your iPad after we upload it. The top portion is the 2013 budgeted deficit with the approved budget. And as you can see, that's where the $594,000 deficit is. And I did the math earlier, and if you add the minimum reserve of 16%, the 1.8, and the additional reserves of $900,000, we had budgeted to have approximately $2.7 million remaining of reserves. With this new news, it's been increased to approximately 3.28 million. The reserve at the 16% is different because that's off of the actual expenses, not the budget. So the 1.8 decreases to 1.6, well, pretty much 1.7 for what the 16% restricted would be, with the additional reserves at 1.6 million. And then that carries forward, so you can compare what we had expected for the reserves moving forward versus where we will be at now. And so the end news is we're not as broke in 2017 with the parenthesis numbers. 2016 is still in the positive for reserves, and then 2017 is where the change is made, if nothing else were to change and we went forward with these. Questions? On the utility side, we're tracking. We pretty much nailed the utility side. We're coming in right where we expected to be with the revenues and the expenses. Stormwater was a little bit higher than we had budgeted for some reason, but that's what we'd expect, collect 100%. Water sewer expenses were about 96%. The stormwater was slightly different. We had budgeted for an emergency repair, and it wasn't as expensive as we thought it was going to be. So that's very positive for the stormwater, because we had expected a deficit for budget purposes, but they ended with a surplus instead because of the repair not being as expensive as we had anticipated. So again, they're tracking right where we expected them to be. And then these are the fund slides where it shows all of the funds, actual to budget to last quarter of 12. The ones that are in deficit status for the third column over from the left, we're budgeted that way. Those are the capital, the debt payments. The REIT fund is due to debt. We paid with the fund balance there. For we transfer money from the REIT funds to the debt funds to make the debt payments, so you kind of see it in two spots. So that's why these are different. The facilities capital budget is the facility building expenditures, which we expected to use fund balance for. Same with the transportation capital fund. And then, of course, Fund 413 is the bond fund, where we are spending down the fund balance there as well. And then the last is the internal service and agency funds. The ER&R, we're spending out of the fund balance, as well as we're adding new revenue as we sell things as well. But again, it's all pretty much what we had budgeted for. That takes us to the investment side, if we don't have any questions. Our very exciting LGIP, the local government investment pool results, are the monthly earnings. They're not really changing. They're staying pretty stagnant around 12.12.
Can't we get the Fed to tighten the money supply to up that a little bit?
Can you give them a call for us? That would be helpful.
It might affect the other revenues.
Yeah, that's true. Be careful what you wish for. So here it is in dollars, and this is citywide, not just the general street fund, for a total of about almost $21,000 for the year in earnings. On the longer-term bonds, these are the 2 to 5 year investments. They are starting, the maturities are coming due for the bond fund, which we're not earning nearly what we are paying on it, so we're okay there. But that's why the number's decreasing over the years for the amount that we have invested in these longer-term, but still short-term investments. So we earned about $26,000 from these this year. Again, I broke it out between general, other, and water sewer, but collectively it was $26,000 for the year. And that's it. Questions, comments?
Council, questions?
I will put it in the Dropbox tonight. That way you'll have it on your iPad.
Good news.
Well, again, that was, I think, one of the only other times that I was speechless in front of the staff was at the end of, we were going into 2011, and when we had forecast to use so much reserves in 2010 to shore everything up. And the department head meeting where they delivered the news that we actually weren't going to be in the red and we're going to be in the black by better than $200,000 was, that was a good moment. These numbers, to see those coming in the way that they did, partially by some things that we couldn't expect or wouldn't try and budget in there, but also through the expense containment that the staff have done, I think speaks volumes for the quality of the people that we have on staff and what they're watching out for on a daily basis. And I know we have some members of the public that would always like to take shots at government in general and government employees in general and that type of thing, but I think as a council, hopefully you feel well knowing that we had forecast using almost $600,000 of reserves this last year and not having to really touch those at all, when staff knew perfectly well that they could spend 100% of what they had and we'd still be fine. So again, my hat's off to the staff. We'll be doing a little update for the all city staff tomorrow, and we'll be delivering this news to them as well and kind of thanking them for their efforts and going through that whole process. So thank you. Okay, with that takes us to item C, our new item, a resolution to allow beer and wine in the Civic Center. During the break, Don and David were talking, and Don cautioned that really it wouldn't, since this stuff is codified, if we wanted to make a quick exemption for the Meals on Wheels program on April 4th, we really couldn't do that through anything other than actually adopting a new resolution itself, so.
New ordinance, or the ordinance.
This is actually by resolution in this part.
Okay.
So during the break, the Don and Dave show put together a resolution that I think took into effect most of the questions that we had and got the gist of what we have in there. If council would be so obliging, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution itself.
Do we need to read it by title?
You would need to do that as well.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the resolution by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
A resolution amending Washougal Municipal Code 2.88.110 to allow beer and wine to be served in the community center.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
I just have one question. I think at the end of the workshop, Mr. Mayor, it was the intent to just do this to get Meals on Wheels cleared, where this is a permanent.
This is
permanent.
The fix.
Okay, I agree with that. I'd be a little concerned if we just specifically called out the Meals on Wheels, or just a one-day exemption, that we might have special legislation issues. So I think and during the workshop discussion, council was pretty much entirely in favor of this, so we may as well just act quickly like the Massachusetts legislature recently did over a certain voyeur incident.
And Mayor and Council, as I committed during the workshop, and if you act to adopt this resolution and change the code tonight, we'll still research and chase all of those details that were raised, and if there's something that we need to tighten in this, we'll have it in your packet for next time. The event isn't until April. This just would give that organization the assurance that they could be public and advertise appropriately for their event.
Any other questions, comments?
Just thanks to the Don and Dave show for being so quick
In 20
on
minutes.
this.
Get permanent work as a typist.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I've got a motion and a second to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. That brings us to the second opportunity in the agenda for any members of public that would like to address the council. And seeing none, I will go directly to the mayor's report. Have a couple, 3 items for you this evening. Number one, if you haven't been to your mailbox yet, you should have a handy-dandy, very colorful zoning map available to you. This is one that Mitch put together in regards to our discussions at the last meeting, specifically on our urban growth boundary properties and what we've got in there, how those are broken up. Hopefully, it's pretty readable. And also, other than where the boxes are for the two largest sections, also gives you all of the zoning throughout the rest of the city. So those are available. Thank you, Rose, for making those copies. Heartwood Park, we did a dedication of some of the playground elements that were put in there through the grant from the Parks Foundation of Clark County. We did that on Saturday. Even among all of the rain, we had some council members there. Thank you for being there. That was good. That was one of those neat things where, you know, obviously the grant that we received paid for the trailer or the tractor that was there, and through the Parks Board and through their funding from you as council that they cobbled together on an annual basis, all the rest of those pieces were purchased by the city as well. So I think Suzanne has some plans to try and continue to grow that area and grow the interest in it so that you've got something up there besides walking trails. Staying on the theme of grants, this one's a little bit premature, but not. We did receive word today that on our CDBG grant application that we put in for the J Street area between 32nd and 34th for those sidewalks, well, specifically for the sidewalks, we'll also have the water system in there as well, that we were the top-ranked project in that and fully funded. That still needs to go to the county commissioners. They've got to approve all of those. I believe at their meeting in May, I believe they had it set for final approvals. But all of the scoring and tabulation that came back from the various agencies that are involved in that, we came back once again, I believe, for the third year in a row as the #1 funded project. So that was certainly good news, and obviously as we move forward and get final approval, Trevor's team will start stepping in and getting ready to start mobilizing that and contacting the folks in that area. Dave, do you want to?
I just wanted to add that one of the reasons, in addition to the great teamwork that we have to put those projects together, to identify the projects, to put together a great application, we had some assistance from Mr. Halverson this year, and it really paid some fruit for us in helping us shape that project and work the application on the infrastructure side. But the council appropriating dollars into those capital funds, an action that you took, was it in 2011, I believe, we recommended that you specifically set aside some of the general reserves into these capital funds to make specific expenditures. That is paying fruit now as we leverage those funds as matching dollars, and so we are able to match at the highest points, and that helps get us, because all of these projects and all of these communities are deserving. They have the same issues that we have, our friends in Ridgefield and Battleground and Woodland and Camas, but the matching funds and that foresight to have those funds available for match is paying fruit, and so we will continue to try to be able to package it in that way for you, so that we can continue to be successful. I think it will be difficult year in and year out to always come in there with the match that's necessary. The fund balances are starting to come down, but news like we got tonight, where we've added almost $600,000 to our reserve balance, where we were supposed to go the other direction, presents some opportunities for conversation around that sort of thing to try to keep some momentum going. So, you know, stay tuned for more discussions on that. We have to figure out, you know, those implications. But anyway, I just really wanted to thank the team, because it's about the application and what it says and the project and scoping it, and it's a lot of work meeting deadlines, and you did a great job.
Thanks, Dave. Items from council members, Brent?
I attended the legislative town halls of, and so did Councilmember McDaniel of two of our state legislators, Representative Pike and Senator Rivers, and I know, Dave, we had a conversation about whether that decant misappropriation was going to get handled. And it sounded like at the town hall it was going to get handled. Has it been handled?
Yes. You'll recall that last session, the legislature appropriated $1 million for the city of Washougal. Representative Pike spearheaded that, but our entire delegation, Representative Vick and Senator Rivers, were very supportive of that. Through some different circumstances, it got identified for our stormwater decant facility instead of our wastewater treatment plant. Again, our delegation went to bat for us, and both the House and Senate versions of the supplemental capital budget out of this short session change it from the decant facility to our wastewater treatment plant, which was where we wanted it. They're still in final negotiations on the supplemental capital budget. There's some other differences between the two chambers, but both versions have that, and until the governor signs that, it's not 100%, but I'm 99.9%. There was some very interesting last minute on the floor amendments just to make sure that happened. Our delegation is very responsive and supportive. I can't thank all three of them enough. I think it's safe to say, it's public to say this, the House version of the supplemental capital budget fully honors our request for the full price of the senior center and community center upgrades that are necessary. And again, thanks to our representatives in this case, because it's in the House budget. It's not on the Senate side. However, they're working through those issues, and I think there's some support for that project. There's a couple other projects very similar to that I saw on the list from the House, senior centers across the state, similar needs maybe. I don't know if they're exact. So I'm just very grateful on behalf of this organization and the community for the work of our delegation. They really are working hard. I know, just as another piece of legislative update, if that's okay, the Senate version of the bill that was going to reconcile recreational and medical marijuana originally had some revenue sharing for us as locals. That came out before they passed it out of their chamber. Went over to the House. The House considered that, amended it in, and so now they're negotiating on that. There's some things happening even tonight on the floor where our delegation is working for us. So.
It seems appropriate, since we theoretically at least have a impact on our law enforcement resources, that localities ought to get a share of that revenue and not have the state take it all.
Yep. So thank you for indulging me way beyond.
No, I wanted to give you a chance to take some credit, Dave. The other thing that I attended with the mayor and Dave was the QUITA meeting, and I don't think we're ready to talk about any specific things, but there will be some things coming forward that I'm pretty excited about, and I think we're getting our value from that organization. That's it for me.
Karen?
Could you come back to me?
Yep. Joyce?
Well, one thing, the sidewalks along Washougal River Road I see are being used now, and they're terrific. So that is a nice project to see completed. And I too attended Hartwood Park, and that is terrific, and it's going to be better all the time. We're very proud of that in our community. Thank you.
Jennifer?
No, nothing to add.
David?
2 items. If we have an agenda item, and I haven't heard yet, the Public Safety Committee will meet on St. Patrick's Day at 12 o'clock noon at the Police Department. And hopefully we'll have the agenda developed by then. Second thing was, the mayor took some time tonight and went into some detail about the financial situation. I'm going to sum it up with 2 words: good management. Nice going. to you and your team. That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I had a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to say is in regard to Hartwood Park and the CDBG sidewalks, I love it when a plan comes together. I was also at Hartwood. I want to talk to my fellow council members here about a possible resolution, whereas the city staff has again brought in expenditures significantly less than budget. They do more with less. Resolved, City Council extends our congratulations and thanks to the directors and staff of the City of Washougal. Is that something that you would like to do?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I've got text for you here.
I've got a motion and a second for basically a resolution of thanks to the employees. Did that sum it up?
To the directors and staff.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Then the other thing is there's been, as you know, we have a resolution to create a budget committee. I sent out an email headed by Please Do Not Reply, which asked each of the council members to come to this meeting with some choices of times that would work for them. Along with that, I said that I was fully prepared that there would not be a single time that worked for everyone, but as long as, if there were two meetings, as long as both met all of the requirements for public meetings, there is no serial meeting problem. So I asked them to bring that information and kind of put it into the public record, and then I will go through it and try to figure out times when we can all meet. I wanted to do this into the public record to eliminate any possibility of tripping over the Open Public Meetings Act, because this does not qualify as an emergency or a special meeting.
Every other Friday, starting this Friday.
So if we could kind of start, that would be a wonderful thing.
Well, I think I'm the only one here who has a day job. Is that?
Like a
is
9-to-5er?
Well,
That wasn't
Connie
my
Jo.
first question.
Connie Jo, yeah,
Connie
Connie
Jo.
Jo has a real job.
I have a real job.
But it's not when you have to be at 8 or
I'm
9
just
hours a
there, I
day.
just don't get
Yeah.
paid.
Okay.
I can
But I do get every other Friday off, starting this next Friday, so that would be a good day for me, or evenings.
So,
Fridays work for me as well.
Yes,
So
Fridays would
that's-
be good.
so that's what, second and fourth
It's just
Friday?
alternating Fridays. It's not second and fourth. It's,
Okay.
Every other.
Yeah.
I'm available on those days as well.
Okay. Any preference for morning, noon, afternoon?
How long do you think these meetings will go?
I'm hoping an hour, but that probably means an hour and a half.
You know, I kind of prefer the mornings.
9-ish, 10-ish?
That's fine.
Yes,
And I'm sorry about the day job comment, but
I'm teasing you. Gosh.
I'm flexible. That works for me just fine.
Jennifer?
That would be fine also.
Dave?
I'm the odd man out. I can't make mornings.
well, afternoons, I'm okay with afternoons on Friday, too.
Well, it occurs to me if we do it around the middle of the day, that might work for Connie Jo, because she drives in the morning and in the afternoon.
I can make late mornings.
So 11 o'clock or later than that? 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock's good.
Okay. Let me talk to Connie Jo then and get information from her, and then I will send information to Rose, and we can get started. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, one follow-up to an item that Mr. Scott brought up, if any of you have a reach to Senator Honeyford, it may not be a bad, may not be time wasted to contact him in regards to the ask that we have for the Civic Center and the kitchen in there.
I have.
I have, who should I talk to? Talk to you?
Yep.
Okay. I'm available at your convenience.
Okay, thank you.
Any messages we can get to him? He was the one that came back immediately and said that that item will be taken under consideration in the negotiations between the two houses, so
And it's currently in the House budget.
it's in the House budget. Okay, with that, we will break from a regular meeting into an executive session on labor relations. 10 minutes? 15 minutes? No action to follow.
Okay. Set my timer.